Today, I'm going to be taking a first look at the Week 5 NFL DraftKings main slate. Like I always do here with these videos, I'll go position by position to start things off, breaking down the plays that are sticking out to me here early on Monday, and then to wrap up the video, we'll put together a first look cash lineup and a first look tournament lineup. With that being said, let's dive into this Week 5 main slate. And we're going to kick things off here at the quarterback position. Now, I do want to mention we only got 10 games on the main slate here this week, as some teams are starting to go into their bye here in Week 5. Really doesn't change things all that much, but it is a slightly more condensed player pool than what we've worked with so far this year. Now, starting at the quarterback position here, I'm going to start with the cash game quarterbacks that are sticking out to me, and then we're going to talk a few tournament quarterbacks. Look, early on in the week here, it looks like I'm going to spend up for Patrick Mahomes at $8,200 going into Minnesota. That secondary just hasn't looked great for Minnesota so far this year. Sure, they made Bryce Young, the rookie quarterback for the Panthers, look kind of terrible at times last week, but that's not Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL. I truly don't think he's going to have an issue picking apart that secondary for Minnesota. And at $8,200 there, we need, what, 24.6 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 3x value. He's very capable of doing that. Done it in 2 of 4 games so far already this year. Had a 20-burger there. 15 points last week in New York. Not his best performance by any means, but that's a solid defense with the Jets as well. Now, if I'm not paying up for Mahomes here this week, the other quarterback that stuck out to me was Joshua Dobbs. Now, in my Discord, if you haven't joined it yet, completely free to do so. Link in the description below. We were talking a little first look earlier, and it was kind of one of those situations where I said, I can't believe we're talking about rostering Josh Dobbs in 2023 as a cash game quarterback, but at $5,200 here against Cincy at home, I mean, look at these numbers here, everyone. 25 points, 17, 23 in his last 3 games. Sure, he could very well have one of those 3-point games again, I suppose, but he truly looks like he's playing with some confidence right now, and I love the way he's running the ball as well. Kind of gives you a little safer floor when he's doing that. Obviously, he didn't do that in Week 1, but he's had 40-plus rushing yards here now in each of his last 3 games. So as far as cash game quarterbacks go, that's really what's sticking out to me here early on. Again, it's Monday night. Things are going to change throughout the week, but at $5,200, Dobbs sitting at a really nice price. Mahomes at $8,200, really nice matchup, and we know the upside that he has. Now, a few tournament quarterbacks that were sticking out to me here as well, starting with Lamar Jackson here going into Pittsburgh. We saw CJ Stroud kind of tear apart that defense for Pittsburgh last week. If he can do that as a rookie, no reason to think that Lamar can't do that. And again, I like the way that he's been using his legs here in his last 3 games. Yeah, I mean, that's really what Lamar Jackson does, right? But scoring 2 rushing touchdowns, really like to see that out of him. They kind of got some beat-up running backs right now. I don't bank on him scoring 2 rushing touchdowns week in and week out, but again, it's the upside that he has, and that Steelers defense hasn't looked great. I also think Tua's really interesting here at home against the New York Giants, who are playing here on Monday night. Giants really not a team that I'm too concerned about, and we know the upside that that Miami offense has. And then Kirk Cousins here. I think we can run a tournament. Actually, I'll build a tournament lineup later on in this video, stacking up Cousins, running it back with some Chiefs players. I think there's a lot of shootout potential playing indoors in Minnesota in that game between them and the Chiefs. Now, moving over here to the running back position, everyone, I'm going to be honest with you here. Again, it's the first look early Monday night, but things just look gross at the running back position here for Week 5. So again, I'm going to start on the cash game side of things, then we'll talk some tournament running backs. I don't think I'm going to have an issue spending up for Bijan Robinson here at home against that Houston defense. He's involved in the running game. I'd like a few more attempts out of him week in and week out, but really, I look at the passing game here, 5+ targets in every single game, 20+ DraftKings points in 3 out of 4 games. Sure, you'd like him to get closer to that 25-point range considering the price, but this is a guy who I think they're just going to continue to use more and more as the season progresses. And then outside of that, Alvin Kamara here. I don't love the matchup going into New England, but look at how many targets this guy got last week. 14. Again, I can't bank on that week in and week out, but Derek Carr clearly not afraid to dump it down to his running backs, especially battling that AC joint injury in his shoulder right now. He should be a little healthier here heading into Week 5, but I suspect he'll have at least 5 targets Kamara's way again, and I'd like to see the rushing attempts go up, but hey, if you're going to give me those targets, again, I know I can't bank on that week in and week out, but showing the upside and ceiling that he does have in the passing game does intrigue me on the cash side of things. But outside of that, everyone, during my initial look here, I didn't really love anything else at the running back side of things in terms of cash games. I think maybe we could go with David Montgomery here, but he's so touchdown dependent. He scored a touchdown in all 3 games that he's played in so far this year, but even so, in those first 2 games where he scored a touchdown, he only got us 13.4 DraftKings points. We take those 6 points away, now we're looking at, what, 7.4 DraftKings points? And at $6,600 there, we're going to need closer to 20 DraftKings points out of him. So maybe a consideration considering the matchup at home against Carolina, who hasn't been great against running backs, but really during the initial look here, it was Bijan and Kamara that stuck out to me in terms of cash. But with that being said, there is a nice range of running backs here from the low 5K range to low 6K range that I would consider for tournaments, and I don't want to say we can't put them in our cash lineup, but they don't offer that safe floor week in and week out that I'm typically looking for in my cash lineup. But maybe week 5 is just one of those weeks where we need to force one of these guys in. Let's talk about him here first. The first guy that I got is Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins. He's gone absolutely bonkers here over the last 2 weeks, but my concern is the limited touches. As you can obviously see here, he had just 8 rushing attempts last week, 5 targets, 13 total touches, and that was enough for him to score 30 DraftKings points. Again, that's the upside he brings week in and week out, which is why I like him in tournaments, especially in that matchup there against the New York Giants. Directly below him, I think DeAndre Swift is interesting at $6,000. Don't love the idea of an East Coast team traveling all the way across to the West Coast playing in a late afternoon game, but with that being said, the volume has looked nice for Swift over the past 3 weeks, 17, 17, and 30 DraftKings points. Honestly, maybe we can consider him in our cash games this week, but again, don't love the idea of traveling all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast in a late afternoon game. Isaiah Pacheco looked really good on Sunday night against the New York Jets, had a huge run to start the game, scored a touchdown, put up 28 DraftKings points. Now, Minnesota's been better at stopping the run compared to the pass, which is why I really like Mahomes this week, but Pacheco, again, looks really good in tournaments. And then more of a high-risk, high-reward play here is going to be Breece Hall playing Denver. That Denver defense cannot stop anybody. We saw that again last week with the Chicago Bears, who arguably have the worst offense in the NFL. Khalil Herbert had a massive day. Obviously, the volume is concerning here with Hall, just 6 rushing attempts last week. I do like the 4 targets, but this is a guy who's truly got some boom-bust appeal, someone who can score from anywhere on the field, especially in a matchup like this. Now, folks, before we dive into the wide receiver plays here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. We're trying to get Sly Dog Sports here to 4,000 subs and build a true brand around this. Every like, comment, and sub that you guys do here on these videos really goes a long way. In fact, every time you guys like a video, YouTube pushes it out to 2 new people. Same thing with the subs as well. So if you could like and sub to this channel, we're going to keep growing this brand, and the bigger we can grow it, the more content we can get you guys. Now, the wide receiver position here for week 5 is offering some really nice value, and that's what I want to highlight here today in this video. Of course, we got Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp is expected to be back at practice this week, A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We know the upside and role that those guys have. Puka Nacua here is the first that I want to highlight. If Cooper Kupp does not play here in week 5, we have to consider this guy in cash. Look, he's got double-digit targets here in 3 of 4 weeks, scored his first touchdown last week. He's going to build on that. 30-plus DraftKings points here in 2 of 4 games, 25-plus in 3 of 4. He's truly a legit stud already in the NFL. Yeah, the price keeps going up there. He got a $1,000 bump from last week, but at $7,700, I would consider him in cash, assuming that Cooper Kupp does not play. But again, there's some really nice value here at the wide receiver position this week, so that's what I want to focus on. It's really in the 5K range here. For starters, we got Zay Flowers going into Pittsburgh. Talked about it earlier with Pittsburgh. Their defense just hasn't been great this year, especially that secondary. We saw Nico Collins of the Texans go off against them last week, put up 30-plus DraftKings points. And again, I'm not banking on that here from Zay Flowers, but at $5,500, we need, what, 16.5 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 3x value. I think he's going to be able to do that here in that matchup against Pittsburgh. Tutu Atwell, again, assuming that Cooper Kupp does not play, look at those targets, 8+ in every single game so far this year. That's hard to ignore considering the price at $5,300. At that price, we need, what, 15.9 DraftKings points? He's essentially done that here 3 out of 4 weeks, but again, comes down to whether or not Cooper Kupp is going to be playing. And then Marquise Hollywood Brown. I don't talk about the 3K wide receiver plays in my first look. Maybe we'll dip into that a little bit here today because there's another Arizona Cardinal wide receiver sitting at $3,700 who looks nice. But this one's kind of just gone under the radar, and I'm guilty of that myself. Probably just because I assume Joshua Dobbs, it's not the greatest of quarterbacks. Probably don't want to put the wide receivers in cash, but look at this volume here again. 10, 7, and 10 targets over the last 3 weeks. 16 plus DraftKings points in all 3 of those games, and we only need 15 for him to meet 3x value. So those are some really nice plays there in the 5K range, and then it does sound like T. Higgins is going to miss some time due to a rib injury, so Tyler Boyd could be on the radar as well. But that Cincinnati offense and Joe Burrow just hasn't looked great to start the season. And since we're down here in the low 4K range, we'll dip into the 3K range again. I usually don't do this during my first look videos, and I don't even want to say these guys are cash game considerations here for sure, but they're definitely going to be on my radar. Just going to go through these pretty quickly here. Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts, Michael Wilson of the Arizona Cardinals. We'll drill into him. He had 7 targets last week, 76 yards, 86 yards the week before that. A little chemistry building there between him and Josh Dobbs. Rice is more of a tournament consideration. I'll build a lineup with him at the end of this video, but he's clearly being used in that Chiefs offense. He'll have a blow-up game at some point this year. It's just a matter of when. And then if Treylon Burks does not play for the Titans this week, I think we could go back here to Westbrook-Ikhine. 6 targets last week with Burks out. Now, let's talk some tight ends here. For my cash lineup, I'm just going to spend down. There are a couple nice options sitting in the 3K range, but for tournaments this week, I think Kelsey, Hawkinson, and Andrews are all in consideration. Maybe even Darren Waller, but I'd rather just spend that extra $100 to get to Mark Andrews. And I'd really prefer to play Hawkinson and Kelsey in that matchup against one another where there's a lot of shootout potential. But let's dip into the 3K range here for cash games. I think we could go to Zach Ertz here. The volume has definitely been there 3 out of the 4 weeks, 8+ targets in 3 out of 4 games. He dropped a touchdown pass last week as well. He's going to want that one back, but I really like Tyler Conklin here at $3,200. And Zach Wilson, he missed him for a touchdown as well. 6 targets in that game against Kansas City. $3,200, we only need 9.6 DraftKings points. He's done that 2 out of 4 weeks. Really kind of punting at that price there, but I really like the matchup against Denver, even if Zach Wilson is the quarterback. And then we'll keep it short and sweet with the defenses here. They brought the prices down for the big ones at the top this week. Ravens are still $4,200, but 49ers were $4,700 last week. In terms of value here this week, I actually don't mind the Jets on the road against Denver. I don't mind the Saints on the road against New England. But the 2K range here is usually where I'm looking for my cash lineup. Cardinals there against Cincinnati, I don't mind that. But I'm kind of looking here at the Titans playing Indianapolis. Now, Anthony Richardson, he looks legit. His rushing upside is clearly legit. He was balling out last week. But the Titans, if they do any one thing good, it's stopping the run. Now, I don't want to say that's stopping the run with quarterbacks, but Deshaun Watson really didn't do much against them back in week 3 with his legs. You can see they're clearly capable of getting sacks, 3+ in every game so far this year, and they're really cheap at $2,400. So yeah, Richardson, I guess he could go off against them. He's a freak athlete, but I don't mind spending $2,400 against a rookie quarterback either. Now, let's go ahead and put together a first look cash lineup. And I'd love to pay up for Mahomes here this week, but I'm going to start it off here by spending down for Josh Dobbs. Again, he's been able to meet value at his price tag. 4 cash game lineups, 3 out of 4 weeks. Really just week 1 where he didn't get there. He's still so cheap at $5,200. I certainly don't mind that at home against Cincy. We're going to put in Bijan there, and I'm going to put in AK as well. I'm not sold on AK for a cash game running back this week, but again, the player pool kind of condensed in my opinion. Now, let's go to the wide receivers here. I really don't think that Cooper Kupp is going to play here this week, so I'm going to put in Puka Nacua. Now we're obviously going to have to find some value. $4,600 left over per player. let's put in a value wide receiver, and I didn't even talk about him initially, but I'm going to put him in now with my first look. That is going to be Adam Thielen. I know people were concerned last week, oh, Bryce Young, da-da-da-da-da. Well, look, he's played 2 games with Bryce Young now, 15 and 20 DraftKings points. Yeah, sign me up again at $5,100, and let's put in Hollywood as well. So we can punt at the tight end position here. I really do like Tyler Conklin. And then let's put in the Titans defense to see how much money we got left. $7,400. Oh, man, there's nothing super interesting in that range. We could put in Monty at that point. And then we got $800 left over. Unfortunately, that's not enough to get up to Mahomes, but we got some extra money laying over there. Maybe we do shift some of those wide receivers a little bit. Again, I hope some value opens up here at the running back position later on in the week. But again, it's Monday night here. First look cash lineup to start things off. Now, let's go ahead and put together a first look tournament lineup as well. And I've talked a bit about that game between the Chiefs and Minnesota. So let's do a game stack around that and then fill in the other pieces. We'll go with Cousins here in his top 2 pass catchers in JJ and Hawkinson. Obviously very expensive, but it's safe. You just go with the top 2 pass catchers with Cousins, and then you can run it back. You can run it back with Kelsey, do the double tight end if you wanted to in a tournament lineup. But I'm actually going to go with Pacheco here. And then I'm going to go with Rice, trying to save some money at the wide receiver position. Like I said, it's not a matter of if, it's when Rice has a big day, especially at a price tag like that. It's just kind of tough to figure out when these Chiefs wide receivers are going to blow up. So $4,400 left over per player. Not a lot of money, that's for sure. Let's go back to the running back position here. And I really want to put in a chain. I know he's blown up here over the last 2 weeks, but who's to say he can't do that a third week, especially in that matchup against the Giants. Now we got about 4K left over per player. Let's go ahead and put in a defense. We'll go with the Cardinals defense, actually. And then I'll put in Michael Wilson. So he's at $3,700. Had a huge week last week. 26 DraftKings points. Again, a rookie wide receiver who they should use more often going forward. $5,300 left over. Let's go to the flex spot here. That's Tutu Atwell, if I'm not mistaken. So let's put him in there. Do like that matchup, assuming that Cooper Kupp does not play. So again, here we went with the Chiefs and Minnesota stack, stacking it up with Cousins, top 2 pass catchers, running it back with Pacheco and Rice. We got a chain there at the running back position, Wilson at the wide receiver position, Tutu Atwell, and then the Cardinals defense. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great week here, folks, and in the meantime, I'm out of here.